This is episode 205 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Welcome to episode 205 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today I have Josh Findlay on the show, and that might sound familiar to you because he is the founder of the Findlay Mortgage Team. Josh is a very skilled entrepreneur, I'll put it that way. Also a real estate investor. He seems very strategic and very thoughtful in the way he conducts his business. So we dove into his entrepreneurship as well as the market and his specific 8-unit building that he is doing a big BRRRR, and there's some pretty big numbers attached to it. So this was a very insightful episode. Josh dropped a lot of gold nuggets about what's happening in the market and how multifamily is being affected differently from single family residential in his opinion. And I thought it was an interesting discussion, and I think you will too. So just before we jump into it, I wanted to say thank you to everyone who's been coming out to our meetups. We just had one last night. It was a great turnout and a lot of really great networking. So if you haven't been to one yet, or if you have and you want to keep coming, the GTA West REI meetup is the group on Facebook, and the link will be in the show notes for this episode so that you can join next time. With that being said, please make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think of the episode. And if you're an audio listener, a 5-star rating and review would be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, let's jump into episode 205 with Josh Findlay. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I've got Josh Findlay. Findlay, yeah. Findlay?
Yeah.
Okay. On the show. And we're going to talk real estate investing, a little bit about mortgages, about the market. And thanks for doing this.
I appreciate having me on. It's a long time coming.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think people would know your name in our circles because they know the Findlay Mortgage Group. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, Findlay Mortgage Team. Yeah, we're
Findlay Mortgage Team. Are you your own brokerage, or you're under another brokerage and you're a team?
We are. Yeah, we own our own brokerage. So we're a Dominion Lending Center franchise, but our firm is the Findlay Mortgage Team. So kind of like a boutique mortgage brokerage firm that helps real estate investors scale. You know, we realized pretty quickly that financing is hard, and the banks aren't very good at advising. So, we try to offer high level advising. Yeah,
banks don't really specialize in real estate investors. Yeah, so obviously it was either brokers or mobile specialists that would really know real estate investing.
Yeah, and that gap is huge. Like the knowledge gap is just unbelievable.
Oh yeah, there's tons of brokers that don't know anything, and tons of mobile specialists who don't either. So yeah, you do have to find somebody specialized.
And there really just is kind of a gap in the market for
sure,
for people like yourself, people like other investors who are looking to use different types of capital. And that the issue with the banks is just essentially they only offer what they offer. Yeah. So if you're looking to be creative or like whatever that looks like, you need somebody who understands all different types of capital and how to transition into certain types of capital.
Interesting, and we'll expand on that.
Yeah.
Definitely want to go into that with you. Okay, so the first area I want to start with you is what's your backstory? Like, you went to school somewhere. Where'd you grow up? How did you end up here?
Sure, kind of stumbled here, to be honest. Life kind of happens in weird ways, but originally I wanted to be a police officer. Went to university for criminal justice. I could kind of
see that. I could see you with a gun strapped to your hip.
Yeah, kind of badass. I thought I was going to save the world. Wanted to be a police officer. Went to university, got my degree, did everything I was supposed to do.
What kind of degree?
Criminal justice and law.
Okay.
University of Guelph. It was a good program. Learned a lot. Kind of leaving university, I had this idea how my life was going to go. It was like, you got my degree, going to get a job, going to white picket fence, everything's going to work out.
Yeah.
Got to the process. At the time, I went through, I got to the very last interview with the police service, and they said, you're just basically a kid, go get some life experience.
Well, plus you're too white for that job, right?
I think that was one of the reasons why.
Because I think and that's a very objective, like, if you're a white male, good luck, you're going to wait until you're 30.
That's pretty much what it was, yeah.
And if you're, a visible minority, as they would call it, then you could get in a lot younger.
Yeah. So I hit a roadblock, and I was like, what am I going to do? I went and got a job like everybody else. It was a sales job. It was kind of a dead-end sales job. Like everybody who was working there for like 40 years. Everybody's making the same $50,000 a year, and they all hated their life and their job. It was very...
What kind of sales?
We were working in wholesale distribution. So like fire suppression, plumbing, HVAC, stuff like that. I was just getting sick of what I was doing. And my uncle at the time, he was in mortgages for the last like 17 years.
Okay.
He's like, every single time I'd get upset, he'd call him and he'd be like, quit your job, come be my assistant. No, I can't. I don't know anything about it. It's 100% commission. Like, how am I going to do this? And one day I got so fed up, I just said, I'm going to do it. I did it, and I quit. And then obviously your boss offers you the world, and you start to double back. You're like, no, I'm doing it. I left. Jumped in it pretty quick. Worked for a brokerage for a while. Realized I didn't want to do cold calls. Worked doing residential mortgages with a brokerage out in Guelph. That's where I kind of got my opportunity. Met some people there.
So you didn't stick with your uncle. He was just doing regular res, and that wasn't your angle?
No, I'm still with him. So he's one of the owners of our brokerage.
Okay.
But we ended up just kind of evolving to doing so much business that it didn't make sense for us to be with somebody else. And we realized through the connections that I had with initial brokerage, I met Adam Martin, and then through Adam Martin, I met Matt, and then through Matt, we started making videos, and then we kind of got into this whole investor space, and then realized that there's a lot of value we can add here. We opened up our brokerage about 2.5 years ago, and then everything.
So you weren't specifically investor focused until more recently?
Yeah, about 2.5 years ago, we started our business with the intention of helping investors, and obviously COVID and creating videos, it was kind of a perfect storm of cheap rates. And no knowledge out there. We kind of created this like storm of people who needed help, and the right time, right place. And kind of ended up here, and now I've helped thousands of clients, and it's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's. I wasn't clear on what your story was, so that's the first time I've actually heard that. So that's good. That's good to know. Obviously, the uncle's a foot in the door. Everybody has some sort of a mentor that kind of helps them see the landscape. For sure.
Yeah. And I also have another partner, Aaron. Aaron's been with me since university. So there's 3 of us who do it. And you're right. So this industry is very top down. Like the issue with the industry is nobody wants to share any knowledge because they're always worried about training their competition. So you have to have somebody have vested interest in you to be able to get further in this or learn how this works. And Scott is very good at development and private financing. So I actually had the opportunity to learn that stuff before residential real estate, and kind of that's how things started to fall into place, realizing, well, there's different types of capital and stuff like that.
So what type of financing? So you finance developments as well as like single family homes and everything in between?
Yeah, so
a lot of commercial stuff.
Yeah, I specifically focus on multifamily. Multifamily. So we do a lot of like repositioning, acquisition, stabilization, CMHC, stuff like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask CMHC. Are you doing a lot of MLI Select?
A lot of people are trying. There's a lot of applications going in right now. They're pretty bogged down, but the MLI program it's really interesting. Really depends on the strategy and where you want to buy. If it makes sense for you, though.
Yeah, well, the point system to convert over less efficient heating to what they say is more efficient, to separate your heating systems, all that stuff. So you have a few applications in right now with that.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Okay.
It's an interesting process.
I heard, because I've never specifically dealt with it, but on REI Hot Seat, Jake and I have been talking about this quite a bit. A lot of his clients are using that, and it's really working out well for them, right? So there's certain things you could do, like you could offer rent discounts, you could offer just to get your points so you can get longer amortizations and lower rates, right?
Yeah, lower DSR. You're like 1.1 DSR. You can get 50-year AM, 95% loan to value.
50-year AM would be kind of cool. How much of a difference does it really make going from 40 to 50? Does it make a big difference right now?
You'd be surprised if you're trying to squeeze in that 1.1 DSR. Yeah. I mean, most people have already stabilized the building, so it's kind of a set it and forget it situation. But in a market like this where they're offering 4.5%, you're under prime on the rate that they're offering right now. It's the only viable exit strategy for
people are assuming those mortgages too if they can.
But the challenge right now is, as an investor, if you're thinking about getting into this product, let's say for example you lock in at 5% right now, and then you commit to 10 years on a term with CMHC. What happens if you want to sell in 5 years and now you're stuck at a 5% rate, and maybe rates do go down, and the average market rate is 3%. Now you're trying to sell a building with an assumable mortgage 2% above where the rates are. So, it's kind of the devil you know versus the devil you don't.
Yeah, obviously, I think most people in hindsight would have locked in last year if they had had the good sense to do so. But now I know a lot of people look at it and they think they missed the boat. They're like, oh, it's too late to lock in their variables now.
I wouldn't be locking any sort of fixed rate.
It's hard to do that. Because and I'm sorry if I'm a broken record here for people who listen to this podcast a lot, but we don't have precedent for rates going down that quickly. Like that next year they would be down. Like maybe they stop rising, but that they would go down next year. Look at what happened in the 80s. They peaked at almost 20%. And And then slowly over 15 years sort of came down to 6% in the year 2000.
Agreed. But I think we also have
This episode is brought to you by Control and Compound Financial. They teach real estate investors how to multiply their wealth using infinite banking strategies. For a complimentary wealth coaching session or to learn more, visit www.controlandcompound.com/Andrew Hines. Are you interested in getting started in investing in the United States but not sure where to start? Why not attend the Investing in the U.S. Mastermind hosted by myself and Nick Van Dyke on March 4th, 2023. Nick and I will be covering topics ranging from A to Z, new construction, multifamily development, Airbnb, and much, much more, as well as the basics, including opening a bank account and understanding the proper corporate structure. We'll have several keynote speakers touching on very specific topics. And most importantly, you'll be sitting in a room with people who are highly focused and highly committed to investing in the United States. For more information, visit investingintheus.com and send me a DM on Instagram for a special discount code. I'll look forward to seeing you at the event. Hey friends, I just wanted to remind you that the next GTA West REI meetup is happening Thursday, January 19th at Clifford Brewing in Hamilton. If you're not already in our private Facebook group, make sure you join through the link in the description of this video or in the show notes on the audio versions, and add yourself to the event to let us know that you're coming so that we can notify the establishment and make sure that they have the proper staff for our group. Don't miss out on this completely free opportunity to network with like-minded investors. It's always an uplifting event and it's always a lot of fun. I'll look forward to seeing you there.
It was manufactured as well, but look at the debt load. It's just two very different times. I think.
It is, because there's no precedent for this time that I'm aware of. I shouldn't say there is no precedent because what do I know in the grand scheme of history? So the things that are the wild cards are the immigration at 500,000 people a year, which is absolutely certifiably insane when we already don't have enough supply. So this is why I say whenever I make my predictions, I could be totally wrong about all this stuff.
Same. If I had a crystal ball, we'd be doing something else. But we're going to see. At the end of the day, good investors weather the storm, and there's always solutions and ability to figure that out.
In the ones that will weather the storm are the ones that we're planning, 2 years ago. What do I need to do to make this property something I'm willing to hold for 10, 15 years?
The challenge is you take a look at how many people, investing became a fad.
Yeah,
in 2 years.
100%.
It became
FOMO.
a thing
there
to
was
do,
a lot of
right?
FOMO, yeah.
So all the investors who started back then, they didn't feel the burn of a down market.
Yeah, they don't know.
So
or they've never lost, right? People who've never lost a dime are a danger to to themselves because they don't think that it's real. It doesn't seem like it would really happen.
Well, that forgetting of what it feels to get burned, or a down market, or over leverage, or time in a project. All the projects or people that I see that are in tough spots right now, they had too much leverage and too much exposure in the market over a period of time. Now,
and they needed market prices to go up.
They did. They needed market prices to go up, and for the last 5 years, it went up. Without a doubt.
It did. But this is why I slowed down so much. And I had that FOMO. I did. But I just kept looking at deals and I said, well, in order for that deal to make sense, and I would look around Burlington, see all these builders building spec homes. I'm like, they're literally building based on the appreciation in the market. There is no profit in their deal. Maybe they're saying there is one. And maybe if they were their own builder, they could, do some of the work themselves. Mm-hmm. But there really wasn't profit in the deals. They were just speculating on what it could be worth.
And that was their whole market, just a complete speculative market. You saw it at the top too, people doing absolute crazy things, wholesaling, buying a property, putting it the next day, making 150,000, just the not real world stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was kind of the sell point for you. You started realizing I'm out.
Well, with the student rentals, I realized that it was an asset that, say for instance, school did what it did before and shut down. I thought the second time around that were to happen, if we got the next lockdown, which I'm still not ruling that's not a possibility. There would be a lot of people who would just say, screw it, I'm going to learn from home. And not all, but then it would have meant that I needed to potentially shift some of my rentals into family when they were purpose-built student rentals. Yeah. So I was just looking at that. I'm like, I'm totally great with student rentals, love them, except I don't really like my exposure. So that's when I just decided, okay, I'm going to sell them off. I'm not going to keep one or two. I'll just sell them all. And I put that money into Florida. And then I kind of stopped short of selling some of my single families and my duplex. And hindsight is 2020. I would have sold everything.
Always, but the hallmark of a good investor, though, you saw a lot of people divest. The ones who've been around for a while divest at the top too. Last year, they were releasing some of their properties to stay liquid.
Yeah, and that's wise. I mean, if there's one lesson to take away, and there's many, but one big lesson to take away is never be afraid to take some of your profits off the table. If you see that market's way up, might be a good idea to just take some of the profits off the table.
And I think like the ones who've been through cycles understand that.
Yeah.
The ones who haven't seen any downturns don't understand that. Forever go up, right? So
yeah, there were a lot of people because like really, if you don't count the 2017 blip, and then the 2020 blip, which was just like very short lived, it was like such a bull market for so long. Like I almost like an unprecedented bull market for real estate and the stock market since 2009.
Yeah. You know, moving forward though, I think that all money's made in down market though as well. Like the majority of smart money's made in down markets. So the opportunity
the opportunity's coming.
Happen. Yeah. You know, you see that meme going around, like the one thing I regret is not buying real estate in 2008 when I was in like grade 6. Have you seen that?
No.
It's hilarious. So
yeah.
And that's the funny thing is everybody thought they missed their opportunity back in 2008. I think, you know, from a mortgage side, I see a lot of applications and it's progressively getting worse.
So the real opportunity back in 08, 09 was in the US. This time I think it's flipped. I think the real opportunity is in Canada. So, I mean, I'm very grateful that I started investing in the US because I felt more hedged and that's the way it's worked out. But, you know, here, because of the 5-year mortgage terms, because those renewals are going to keep coming up, you know, today there are thousands of mortgages renewing and there'll be thousands renewing tomorrow from a 2 to a 3% into a 6 to a 7%. Keep that in mind.
And yeah, think about like the average family has a fixed income. Yeah. Like you're talking about a few $1,000s a month in extra additional costs that everybody was already stretching the limits.
They were stretching the limits, right? They had the stress test, which did, you know, most people were qualifying around 5.29, but just because they met the stress test then doesn't mean their family expenses didn't grow over the last 3 years, 5 years.
Of course, you see the average nuclear family too. You got what? Like you got a Benz, you got a BMW, you got you go on vacations every year. Yeah. You know, people are refinancing using their houses as ATMs for the last 10 years. Like I think our market is in for a rude awakening.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't want to be doom and gloom, and I don't mean to be. I think that the big takeaway here is, one, there are deals right now that you can have for cheaper than they're pretty well ever going to be ever again. Yep. If you're looking. And then in about 2 years' time, I think there are going to be a lot of really cool deals. In you know, with a side of sadness, of course, because it's going to come at the expense of you know, a lot of unfortunate situations.
Agreed. I think it's interesting to see right now that those deals exist already and you start looking. Like there's a lot of inventory on the market. You know, talk to any wholesalers right now, they're not moving anything just because there's so many options for buyers at the moment. Yeah. What's really interesting though is multifamily real estate right now. It hasn't lost any value whatsoever. Anybody who's in a project, who's finishing their project right now, you know, the drastic increases in rents have offset any sort of cap rate expansion. Like all of the projects we're seeing, you know, guys are doing their full burrs still. You know, they're still holding solid value in, you know, decent markets.
Interesting. Yeah, I've heard like, oh, it's lost a bit, but nowhere near as much. And obviously, like for instance, London, 38% increase year over year in rental rates. You can bet that's going to offset some of the interest rate hurt
for sure. And we're seeing a huge like push from the majority of investors who were in that residential space into multifamily. It's just obviously from a scalability perspective, you know, income on your GDS TDS ratios aren't able to support any sort of like debt anymore just due to where rates are. People are moving into the commercial realm. And I see that as a parallel from the States, right? There are a ton of DSCR loans out there. It's being pushed into the Canadian market where people are just looking to qualify now based off how the building is operating. And I kind of like how that model is with the banks because it's less leverage and it has to be a cash flowing asset.
Yeah. Yeah. So just for anyone who's not following that, in the commercial lending space, there's a debt coverage ratio that's applied and it's based on the building and not you personally. That's why so many investors that grow big do it in the commercial side of things because you kind of unlimit yourself. Whereas you're doing it residentially, you hit that 5 property cap with Scotiabank or what do they offer? They're 5 max.
Yeah, it's like 5 and 1, I think. Yeah. And then the B lenders, there's some that have unlimited, but you're always trying to squeeze in with like
and then you get not as good rates. So I find that a lot of investors as they go through their career, they start going onto the commercial side, starting with credit unions, and then they can work with the big banks too, depending on the size of the deal, where it is. So Yeah, that's just progression. Didn't mean to detract from what you were getting at there.
No. I think that's just where we start to see the majority of investing go in the next little while is, something that allows investors to continue to scale. Banks are coming out with really cool products now for repositioning larger buildings. Low DSR, like a 1 DSR, interest-only options, 18-month terms, reduce cost to actually enter the products. Some really
there
cool
are some good programs
products
out there to incentivize people to buy. We're even looking at some stuff for our campground right now. There might be some options for us even early on as we're stabilizing our income. So it's not that there aren't like real opportunities right now, because I think there really are, and that's the amazing thing. And I also think it's really great for people who are hanging on to some cash. There's going to be more, but definitely worth keeping your eyes out. So you think that multifamily is gonna kind of stay steady and hang tight?
You might have obviously cap rates are going to continue to expand, but we're not seeing anybody pressure to sell. So there's no comps for people offloading these properties, and the guys who do own them, they're legacy owners. They've had them forever.
And that's what I've said repeatedly is they don't have the pressure to sell. If it's not your home, you don't have the pressure to sell. So what I think is you're more likely to see, your duplexes, your triplexes, those are more likely to go down because of their comparability to a single family home. They're often in similar neighborhoods. With somebody being able to buy a single fam and just add 2 units to it, that's going to affect the price of your duplex, triplex versus your 10 to 20 unit building, maybe not likely to be affected the same way, or at least not as directly.
Well, we're also seeing the main reason is your ability to force appreciate the property. Right now you're in a declining market and you don't know where the bottom is. So getting into a residential project isn't viable because you could throw $100,000 into a project and maybe you're not going to make any money. Whereas you can look at the definitiveness of an as complete value on a multi, and if you can get vacancy on the purchase, or you can do those things, it allows you to really dial in. Well, I know my cap rate on as complete is 5.5. Here's my NOI. This is where my project is going to end up. So people like the
cap
certainty.
Rates change a bit, right? As interest rates climb, cap rates are going to climb too over time, and that takes time. That's my big thought is it's going to take time, but of course the rent rate increase kind of offsets the cap rate increase, so that maybe these values stay similar.
I guess the real question is, when is rent going to stop going up?
When interest rates stop going up.
So
all these people who would be buyers are just okay, screw it, I'll rent.
Yeah, but you're talking $2,400, $2,600 in secondary markets. You're talking $3,300 in
Well, everybody's
Toronto.
making that assessment. Should I just buy this property or should I rent? And I think that they're looking at, hey, what's it cost for the mortgage? Oh, this is what the mortgage would cost. Oh, not happening. Okay, we'll rent. I just had tenants in one of the buildings I have listed for sale. They, they wanted to potentially buy it. I told them the price. They're okay. And they just found a place to rent. They went somewhere else. Yeah.
Always waiting for a lower rate.
Anyway, so Josh, I wanted to ask you about your personal side of things.
Sure.
What do you got going on as an investor? What have you gotten into, and what are you working on?
Yeah. So obviously, the first few years of our business, the highest ROI was my business. So get it operating, get it going.
Yeah.
That obviously has now stabilized, and I was able to put some money aside, and I wanted to get into multifamily.
Yeah.
So I bought an 8-plex in Kitchener, I think back in February.
Okay.
And we just finished 6 of the units. 2 of them, the tenants are staying, but just
so you kicked them all out?
I didn't kick them out.
Cash for keys?
Yeah. So they got incentivized to leave. Some of them were on the way out anyways. Some of them we were able to find them different places to live. Some of them took the incentive.
And how did you work that? So was it the classic N13, and then when they're moving out, you offer them something to sign the what is it, the N11?
No. So honestly, we have a team of people who they're realtors, so they have different places in the city that they can relocate, and then we just had the conversation. They went and had the conversation with them, said, listen, this is what we want to do. We want to upgrade the property. You're more than welcome to come back after the fact. This is what we're roughly going to rent it out for, or we can give you X amount of dollars. I think it was about $10,000 per unit. And
so you were telling them you were going to increase rents for an above, but that's very limited, right? When you apply to charge more than the 2% increase that you're allowed.
Yeah, we definitely didn't do it the way we should have. So I stumbled on the first one for sure. So we went
told them a little something.
Yeah, but it worked out. So 6 of them, took the incentive, and we were able to relocate them in a really good spot. It helps when you have a realtor who has access to certain listings and stuff in the area that kind of allow them to get closer to where their rent was currently at the property. Yeah. So that helped, and then obviously everything either costs more or it takes longer than expected. But there were a few hiccups along the way. Didn't realize it but we had to take out all the windows in the entire building.
Really?
Yeah, they were all just super old, and by the time after we got in there, realized that if we were gonna be like,
if you're gonna go this far, you might as well. Yeah.
So it was like about $80,000 hit that we didn't really expect.
Could have been worse.
I agree. And then it was about 40,000 a unit in renos. We rocked and rolled. We put everything, bathroom, kitchen, flooring, paint.
So you did the full shebang.
The whole thing.
Okay, so you said it's 8 units, and then you bought for how much?
We bought for $1.675 million.
5.
It was actually listed for roughly like 120 days. I guess there was a few people who couldn't close on it, and we were kind of wondering what was wrong with it and walked through it. I think it was just the amount of capital that was needed to be put into the project that kind of deterred some people away.
So it was at $40,000 per unit plus the windows, plus the 80 for the windows, and then. Did you kind of factor a carrying cost, or you were able to turn some units over?
Sure. We actually got unicorn financing. So kind of one of the benefits of being a broker, I do a lot of business with a few of the credit unions in the area, and they were able to give me some crazy financing that doesn't exist. They gave me like 4% interest only for 12 months.
4% interest only?
But the
that's all right.
But the catch was I had to put a full year of payments in the account, and it had to stay there.
Okay.
So it was kind of like an interest reserve, but
gotcha.
It allowed us to get in with like no private lending fees, no broker fees, stuff like that.
Okay, so you did a credit union. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what did the 4%, like how much did you borrow approximately?
1.2 million.
So equals, let's say, so
we put 475 down.
Times. Yeah, so like reno and carrying costs probably like around 450. Does that sound about right?
Reno budget was, we ended up doing some exterior work that needed to be done as well. Yeah. I think our entire cost, not doing the 2 bottom units, was about 550. 550.
Okay, yeah. So we'll add another 100 onto that. Okay, and yeah, so you're in for like 2.2 and change?
Yeah, roughly.
Okay. And what were you able to get it rented out for, like on the ones?
Sure. The 6 units that are fully done in Kitchener right now, they're all 2-bedroom units. Mm-hmm. They're all roughly 1,200 square feet each. They have a balcony and they have a driveway.
That sounds really nice.
Yeah. We ended up getting $2,400 for all 6 units.
Could probably get even more now, right?
Agreed. And then the 2 bottom units were at, I think all the tenants were paying like $700.
Yeah.
So bottom units are $700 and $650, I believe.
Now, can you not just give them an N13 and say, hey guys, you're going to have to go?
Yeah, I mean, I try not to, I don't want to be the guy. Yeah. I'd rather, I think they'll leave eventually. I think we're working with some of them to, try to either figure out if there's a good solution for them moving forward.
No, I get it. And like, obviously you want to work with good tenants. If you got good tenants and, if they're respectful people, then treat everybody with kindness. I definitely believe, but it's always worth a conversation. At the end of the day, it is your asset. And if it's costing you money, and you gotta make it work, right?
Completely agree. Yeah. So the difference between those 2 tenants leaving and those 2 tenants staying are about $600,000 in value.
Yeah. We'll crunch those numbers in a second here. So what are your approximate taxes on the building per year?
Oh man, I want to say 12,000.
Yeah. Okay, that's not too bad. Insurance on something like that, like 5 or 6 grand.
I think it was 6,000.
6,000. And then maintenance, I got 5% in there.
Yeah, 5% maintenance, 4% management, 3% vacancy.
4% management. Utilities wise, what do you?
We shifted a lot of the utilities to tenants. They're all individually metered, and then we took
out for electric. They're metered.
Yeah, they're electric. They're metered. Yeah.
Central boiler.
Yep, central boiler. We actually were looking at there's a cool like company out there. I can't remember what it's called. Flow something.
Yeah.
They actually, for larger buildings, they'll actually individually put water meters in it, and you
can sub-meter.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. We didn't end up doing that with this building, but
are you doing like a water bill back or like a flat rate water amount?
No, we're just gonna cover the water.
So you're covering water. So you're basically paying for water and central boiler.
Yeah.
You have any idea of what that's costing you?
I think we were able to cut our utility costs down significantly just due to changing like toilets, changing like flow. I think we were, I want to say
like $300 a month for water. Or $400?
Yeah. I'd say $300 a month for water, maybe like, like 4,000, say $5,000 total for all expenses for the year.
Really? Okay. So you're that. Okay. So that's rock solid.
Yeah.
So that covers natural gas and water.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty tight if you're doing it for that rate. That's great. Okay. So then landscaping, snow removal, garbage removal.
That's a good question. I factor that into the average maintenance.
And do you pay for garbage removal or do they take out their own? Oh, so you have a bin.
Yeah, we have a bin back there.
Like it's like $170 a month or something.
Yeah, something like that. And then we own all of our equipment inside the building, so there's no carrying costs on the equipment.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say, and then landscaping and snow, you're gonna be like what, $1,500 a year or something like that?
Yeah. The landscaping, we have our own landscaper who just is gonna deal with it. Management company, they're gonna do it all. I'd say probably we'll go with that.
Yeah, so let's say $1,500 for the landscaping snow, and then another $175 a month times 12 for the garbage removal.
Yeah.
And do you pay a superintendent or none of that? Okay.
No, factor that into management.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you got a manager there at 4%, and that's the nice thing when you get into the bigger buildings, you can get that management percentage down a bit because it's just one building. So they're making a good chunk, right? That's $7,500 a year for them. That's not nothing. So they get several hundred a month to look over that building.
For a pretty turnkey building,
do you pay releasing fees as well? Leasing fees on top of the 4% management?
No.
No? Oh, wow. Then you're getting a smoking deal.
No.
Okay, so that's great. So I've just gone ahead. I've got the 5% maintenance, although you did just do a reno. I like to build in life cycle stuff. You just did your windows. That's awesome. They're probably good for 20, 30 years.
Your
roof.
it's brand new.
Your roof is brand new?
So the guy right before he owned it, he actually, he had to redo it. So right before we bought it's brand new.
Okay, and then the only other big items would be your big mechanicals. So
which I'm going to get to. So we're actually we're changing out the boiler. So it's just a multi-step process. So we're actually using a product. It's a bank out there. I was telling you about it, but we want to transition to CMHC, but there's some processes along with that.
Like the MLI Select thing?
Yeah. So, but you have to wait 12 months to stabilize rents. So this bank I was telling you about, they have like a 1 DSR and like a interest-only option at like prime plus like 2 or prime plus like 1.75.
Yeah.
So they allow us to take like a 12-month term. We're going to get out all of our capital because there's no restriction on what that looks like. So we're pulling out all of our money, and then we're just going to take a reduced cash flow position on the building for a year, and then move into CMHC after that.
Interesting. Okay, so you got a plan.
Oh yeah.
So that's with this credit union that you're working with that you've worked this out, or
no? I'm paying out that credit union,
and then you're going to move into this, and then into the CMHC.
And then into CMHC, correct?
Very cool. Okay, so boiler wise, what are you going to get into? Like a 10 grand?
It'll be about 10.
Yeah, so like a 5% maintenance a year is like 9,400. You might, in actuality, outside of that boiler, only spend like 1%, like 2 grand. So this is why I like to keep it at 5, but we could play around. You could put it at 4 or whatever, because at the end of the day, like after this year, then you're going to have very minimal for the next while, unless you have a whole bunch of turnovers all in 1 year.
Yeah, which I mean. I very much doubt it, but it's hard to get a good unit in Kitchener.
What do you figure the value is when you're done?
So it's 2 steps. So without the 2 units in the bottom, I think we're going to be about 3.2. With the 2 units fully done and the full place done, I think we're going to be about 3.6, 3.7.
Oh, wow. Big numbers.
At like 5.25 to 5 cap. Depending on, depending on where you're at in your project, right?
Yeah, so I guess it'll come down to what CMHC is going to want to see for a maintenance number.
Correct.
Right, because mine's lower than that, but I have a 4% maintenance in. I don't know.
CMHC has a cost per door maintenance cost. It's like $700 per door. Then they have like
goes 700.
Their NOI and the actual NOI on a building for like a value perspective are 2 very different things.
Yeah, okay. So they're going to be equals 700 times 8. That's going to be 5,600. So you're closer, like CMHC is going to factor closer to 3%.
Yeah.
So at that rate, I'm showing a 4.65, but I did make some other assumptions here. So you figure you're going to be around 3.2.
Yeah.
And then they're going to go how much?
So the bank I was just telling you about, so they're giving us 2.3 million equity, full new first, and that gives us $100,000 in renovation budget availability to be able to finish the other 2 units when we can.
Okay.
So, and then CMHC, we're probably gonna be land around 83% when it's fully stabilized.
83.
Loan to value on the new value.
Okay, and that'll be, and I'm going to sub in those numbers, and then you're going to be what amortization with them likely?
Probably, I'm only running my numbers at 40 years. I like to be conservative.
And then like a 5% interest rate or?
Yeah, run at 5. I mean, where we're going to be at in 12 to 18 months from now is another story, but.
Yeah, okay, so let's say, when I'm running at this, and it might be just some of my assumptions because we got utilities at $5,000, maintenance at $5,600, management at $7,500, and then I got landscape snow at $3,600, which is obviously there's potential to get that down. And then insurance we've got at $6,000, taxes at 12, and then I have a $500 miscellaneous. So I'm getting a slightly negative on that at 5%, so at 83%. But if you get those other 2 units up to like whatever they're going to be,
$2,450 per unit,
2,500 even, so 2,500. Now all of a sudden $3,000 cash flow. Yeah. So it's amazing how much effect they have. This is what I mean when I say, at the end of the day, they had the ability to approach the owner previously and buy the building and didn't. So if they chose not to buy the building, you're the guy that brought the building. Like, this is where I mean, some people will disagree with me, but like, they don't have claim to that property, in my opinion.
I agree with you. Unfortunately, landlord-tenant board thinks
Landlord-tenant board doesn't. But I mean, my point is, like, there's no need to feel bad about that. Of course, treat them with dignity and respect and work it out. But they got to understand, like, you can't just sit there and take a negative 300 when
you're talking
these numbers.
Yeah, you're talking serious amounts of capital invested in a project as well, right?
Yeah, like, you got to make sure it works. So the nice thing is, with something like this, you can get a system going where the building more or less takes care of itself. Once your team's in place, you know exactly who you're dealing with, you get your payment system set up for collecting rent. Once all that heavy lifting is done, all of a sudden it becomes quite easy. You could even take back management of this building.
For sure. I mean, to be completely honest, I think I've gone to the building like 3 times. Like when we bought it in the middle of renos, and then just like last week when we finished it. So
yeah, but you're in the area, right?
Yeah, I'm in the area too. Yeah, I
so
just my tenants don't know I exist. Like, it's
right. So you like having the manager. Yeah. I'm saying you're according to our updated 2,500 rent would be $9,300 a year to a manager. Like, that's potentially extra cash flow in your pocket if you just use that money towards systems.
Of course.
And you wouldn't spend $9,300 on the systems, right? Like, get a really good property management software, and then if you have an assistant that already works for you, like that works really well for me. My assistant deals with my tenants, and
good idea.
Yeah, like, then all of a sudden, no manager.
Yeah, $10,000.
But it is good, especially being that it's your first. Is this your first?
Yeah,
one?
First one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So use a manager for a while. Learn what they're doing. Like, just be annoyingly over their shoulder. Hey, how do you do this? Like, just pay attention to what they're doing. And then, I mean, that was helpful to me with my student rentals, especially watching what the manager did, and then taking some of what they did, some of what I knew other people that were doing, and then merging that into my systems.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as you continue to buy, or as we continue to buy more buildings, like it's going to definitely allow us to continue to get those systems and processes in place. It was never about the cash flow though. Mm-hmm. It's about obviously, wealth on paper, like from a net worth perspective for a long-term hold, and, velocity of capital. And I just found that these buildings allow you to be able to pull all your money out, at least right now where rents are drastically increasing.
So you're still not seeing that change, that momentum, despite what's happening in the single family market, you're still seeing this stay strong.
It is unbelievable how many people are purchasing and refinancing multifamily real estate. Okay.
So I thought of the other thing that was a big factor. One thing was that was going to push prices back up and potentially sooner than any historical precedent that we're aware of would be the different hedge funds that have now said they're going to start scooping up single family residential properties. Like, there's going to be investors that come in and take advantage of an opportunity. And some of those may be, large scale funds. So on one hand, it looks like we could be in for a long decline. On the other hand, it looks like, maybe it's possible that between immigration and investors coming in, that it pushes things up faster than we think.
I think the sentiment is it's consistent across all of my larger clients as well. I think everybody's liquid right now. Everybody has been planning for quite some time.
Oh yeah, like regardless of how you want to look at it, like just having more units on the market means more opportunities that something was missed. Mm-hmm. People looked over, the listing had bad photos, whatever. It didn't get looked, for some reason, people didn't like the look of it. It had some wrong information on the listing that threw a bunch of buyers off. And then all of a sudden that property got a stigma when there was no reason for it to have a stigma. And now that's an opportunity. That exists right now. And there's people who are in a situation that just got to sell right now. And there's a number that works for them that isn't last year's number. It's a number that, that works really well for you.
It's the reality of the number.
It could be even well under the market number, but they just need to move quick.
Yep.
Yeah, and it might really work for them to sell at that number if you can just take it right away and be done with it. So
yeah, and those who have the gold make the rules at the end of the day. I think that the guys who are going to be liquid in a market like this are going to be the ones who obviously profit the most out of it.
Yep. Now, definitely going to be a good time to stack some cash.
It's catching a falling knife, though. Don't try to catch the bottom because you never will.
No, but you will have signals.
Yep.
Right. I think you'll have signals. Right? When they stop raising interest rate, that's a signal of something. Whether it's, I'm not saying it's a signal things are going back up, but it might be a signal that things are going to slow in the decline, or things will slow, X number of months out.
What's interesting though is, all the conversations I have with all the, private capital funds and all the banks,
They're still lending.
They're lending. Like they're bullish. Like there's a lot of capital.
It's the private investors that are wary. Yeah, like I agree with you. Yeah, the funds and the local funds, they're still rock and roll.
Yeah.
Let's keep
maybe a little bit less risk, lower loan to value, higher rates, obviously, if you're borrowing from a line. But the rhetoric coming out of these like larger banks for these, especially these multifamily assets right now, they are doubling down on this year, next year.
Yeah, things going up.
Things are ramping up.
Yeah. Which, it makes a lot of sense, especially for that type of asset. Like there's probably a lot of investors out there that have been waiting for an opportunity to get into some of these multis, and they're gonna keep pushing up on that price because they know that there's a little softening.
The tough part is, buying these assets is extremely challenging, which is kind of where we found our niche.
Like it's a lot of work, takes time.
Well, it's creative.
And you got to know this is the process. You can't Johnny, single family investor won't necessarily know anything about this process unless they watch this show and have heard you talk, and
of course,
many of our guests.
I think because most of the loans supported on these properties are 50 cents in the dollar, from a loan to value perspective, everything's under rented.
Yeah.
So acquiring these assets, either you need to have an unbelievable amount of capital down, or you're going to have a large VTB from the seller.
Yeah.
Or you're going to have to be extremely creative, which takes, private capital. If you don't have vacancies, exactly. It's going to be challenging.
There's just a level of sophistication needed for it that just is unseen in the, single family side of things. Not unseen, like it does exist there too, but a lot less so. That's why there's more competition in the single family side of things.
Yeah, agreed.
So you made a good choice getting into that side of things, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's where the market's going to move for the next little while until we kind of find a bottom on the res side.
Anyways, okay, so what's the next move for you? Are you waiting a little bit, or are you ready to go on the next one? Like, what's your approach from here on in?
Yeah, when this project is, we get our capital out, I think the idea is to look for a more multifamily opportunity. But
wait until you refinance that capital out.
Yeah, we get all of our money back. I mean, the amount of capital invested in this project is being way more than I thought it was going to be. And
isn't that how it goes?
Yeah, I mean, you got to risk it to be able to, get the reward, right? So I think it's going to be a lot of opportunity, as I said 10 times in this podcast already. But I'm not going to be quick to pull the trigger because I still see some turmoil in the market. But
think about like right now, you can go up to a seller that's had their property on the market for like 120 days and they're sweating a little bit and they have no mortgage. Maybe that one's not sweating, but maybe they say have next to no mortgage, and you can get a 90% VTB. And, maybe for them, they just wanted to get rid of it. They needed money to retire. If you would buy it and, pay them a 3% interest rate for the next 10 years, they might be agreeable to that. Mm-hmm. You might be able to secure a 10% or a 90% VTB at 3% annual interest for 10 years. That's possible. And 10 years is a long time. At that rate, that could be a really smoking deal that you could pay more for potentially because you're getting such favorable terms on financing. And is that an easy thing to find? No, I don't think so. But if you're making enough offers and having enough conversations, I think you find it.
And they're already popping up. We're starting to see large VTBs across the board. People who are being motivated to sell, and you're talking like rates under prime at the moment.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah, no, those opportunities.
So the creative negotiations, talk to people because you just never know. This is why I don't think it's a good idea to count yourself out. I think right now is a great time to get creative, ask questions, look at deals with the mindset that you want to pick something that you'd be happy to manage and own for 15 years.
Yeah, and I think just regular economics are coming back to purchasing real estate. You now have the ability to be able to run numbers at a reasonable rate. Yeah. People bought real estate back in the 80s. People are going to buy real estate now. Just don't be over leveraged. Yeah. You don't have to have maximum debt on all your properties. You don't have to be. Yeah. And all we saw last 2 years is variable terms. Now everybody who wanted variable terms wanted to break their mortgage without penalty because they thought rates were going to stay low forever and money was free, right? So actual thought process around taking these loans is going to become fundamental in creating a portfolio moving forward. Yeah,
I knew last year when I locked in a few at fixed rates. So actually I did that in 2021. We're almost in 23. I just, like, how much lower could rates go? I mean, obviously as an investor, a lot of us wanted to do variables because we never wanted to be locked into something where we couldn't sell it, like interest rate differential. But when you're already at 2%, how much lower can you really go?
That's the thing, hindsight, right? You look back and why didn't you lock in at 2%?
Yeah, because it might go down to 1.8, and then I'll have to pay interest rate differential on 0.2% for 5 years, which would suck.
Yep.
And that was the fear. That was absolutely the fear.
A lot of investors in the red side too, they had this whole, zero sum debt washing strategy. And if you're all on variable terms with Scotiabank, now you're debt wash, no longer debt wash because your rates are skyrocketing and you have no cash flow and now you can't scale anymore. So there's definitely...
Scotia, they adjust your payment, right?
Yeah,
so every
correct.
time rates bump up, your payment just goes up. Yeah, they call that adjustable.
Yep.
Yeah, instead of just a variable, because variable you won't necessarily change. It'll change your amortization.
Yeah, static variable, which a lot of people have already hit their trigger rates, which is, a lot of the calls we're getting right now as well.
Yeah. I no longer want this property, list it. A lot of people have that idea. But, so for some of those, like that, the opportunity is not there because their mortgages are going to be too high. They're not going to be able to give you a VTB. But they're going to be out there, like the opportunities. So that's why I think it's nice to think, hey, like now's a great time to just figure out what is the number I need to make at current interest rates. What's the number? What type of building would be ideal? Like, what do I want to own long term? And this might be a great way to just start picking up the assets you wish you could get 2 years ago. Yeah. Now you actually have an opportunity.
Yeah, I think there's lots of different types. Don't forget, there's lots of different types of asset classes too. Like, industrials still burning red hot. There's the regular multifamily res. Like
industrial storage. You ever done any of that for financing?
I've looked at a bunch. I got a bunch of clients who are either developing right now or looking to acquire them. Really interesting stuff.
It is.
No landlord tenant board. Yeah. You can raise rent to whatever you want.
Well, you could have Amazon as a tenant. Yeah. Like you could have really big retailers as your tenants, like storing their shipments in your facility. That actually seems really cool to me.
Yeah. The natural progression of like an investor though, like what does it cost to be able to purchase a facility that size?
Yeah. Yeah. I got Hussein Kudrati, is who I'm thinking of. I need to have him back on the show. We'll dig into that more, see what's new with that. Because like the opportunities out there, like you said, they're kind of endless. Like, do you have any other thoughts, like in terms of like something new that's tweaked your interest recently, like a new strategy?
I mean, that I don't think it's a coincidence that the MLI product actually came into being before all this happened. So I mean, new that we haven't talked about. Yeah. Obviously the self-storage. I think people are going to start to try to find cash flow in other avenues, other ways. I'm trying to think of anything that I've seen that has been like.
Well, I mean, are you seeing your clients do stuff? Like what are some of the things? Actually, that's probably another way to rephrase that. Like, what are you seeing some of your clients doing? Like, is it mainly just the MLI Select thing?
There's a lot of multifamily repositioning. Looking at different products and understanding the process in which it actually works. Yeah. Understanding that you need to have 12 months of stabilized rents to move into MLI, so you have to have a bridge financing to get into that, or like. Looking at dialing in the actual profile for purchasing these properties, because 2 years ago or a year ago, 2 years ago, people were just buying things in like Timmins, Ontario. Yeah. But now that things are tightening up and banks don't want to lend in secondary markets, understanding where your buying profile is, like decent markets, minimum DSR requirements, MLI certified, or the ability to be able to refinance into some sort of conventional debt. Just like a lot of our clients are trying to refine their buying process to understand, have a little bit more knowledge about the different steps involved. Okay. It's easy to buy something, not so easy when markets are tightening up to get out of that type of financing. So I think this environment is just growing a more sophisticated level of investor.
And when so some of the investors that are sort of realizing they've made a misstep, how do you see them adapting now?
So we're looking at everything as a portfolio at the moment. So if you have excess cash flow in, say, in one residential property and you're losing in another, is there an ability to be able to maybe stabilize out your portfolio, take a little bit of capital from this to be able to offset where you're losing somewhere else? It's more of a very unique approach. So just looking at everything and seeing if there's an option. Everybody thought option A was sell if you were in a project. Well, now option B, you're looking at, can I do commercial financing on my duplex or triplex? Can I do B financing. Most people, if you're underwater on a flip right now or a project like that, they would much rather take the $200 a month in negative carrying cost and hold it for 2 years and lose, $5,000 for it, $4,800, than take a huge hit on like $100,000 rental budget that they're underwater on. So essentially, it's just planning out what does the next few years look like, and can you restructure your portfolio to mitigate any loss.
Yeah. And hopefully have access to some capital for, when you spot some really good deals come around. That's the big thing, right? Just having access, because people would always refi in the past to get the money to buy, but that strategy won't work in a declining market. So you got to have some access.
Yeah.
Even if you get HELOCs in position now, that theoretically the HELOC would be underwater. I don't know if they'll call them.
I haven't heard of it yet.
I don't know if that's in the terms. I have not read the fine print. Maybe. They could get called.
I'm sure they've reduced loan to value in certain areas depending on what your balance is.
Yeah, but hopefully there's an opportunity there. You can borrow some of that money. Also, concerning, but hopefully you're borrowing that money to buy a cash flow mammoth, something. And then you'll be like, okay, it's okay. It's okay when I'm doing that.
It's okay, I can borrow it. Just keep in mind, obviously, that borrowing cost is based on prime, and prime is high right now.
Prime
so
varies,
you're borrowing at what maybe private rates were like last year. Your prime plus.
What's our prime now after the increase?
649, I believe.
6.
Yeah, we were 595 plus 50 basis points.
Yeah,
so 649.
645.
645, yeah. And plus 50 basis points. If you have like a Scotia step product, you're almost 7%.
Oh man.
Interest only. You're basically borrowing private money from yourself.
Wild.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, go back 12 months and tell somebody this is how this would all go.
Hindsight's definitely 2020, but there's something to be said about not taking all of your HELOC out at 7% and using it for a down payment.
Oh yeah, no.
Well, that's how everybody scaled, right? It was free money at the time, so people would get a HELOC, borrow from the HELOC, buy a property, and then use their giant HELOC on their house, but now their HELOC is up to 7% and they have a crazy carrying cost on this money, but you can't refinance any of your rental properties. We're seeing that guys who grew a portfolio by using their home equity, and now they have giant home equity payments and properties that aren't cash flowing because they're on variable terms. Yeah. And you can't sell them, you can't refinance them. Like, those are the people we're worried about. The guys who grew from 0 to 4 or 5 in 2-3 years on variable terms. Yeah,
the fast growth, as much as we all want it, is sometimes your enemy.
Yeah.
Because it takes time to see things, to gain wisdom in this market. Of course, you can gain wisdom by listening to people who have wisdom.
Yeah.
But some people don't maybe listen enough, or they don't, again, take it seriously. If you've never lost, it's tough to internalize that feeling of losing.
Well, it wasn't there. There wasn't anybody talking about it.
Yeah.
There wasn't anybody sharing that.
I'm one of the OGs who lost, and my story is all like
battle scarred.
Yeah, getting started, right? Not that I'm making every right move and don't have regrets. Of course, everybody would do things differently with their crystal ball. So,
of course.
Any other thoughts or words of wisdom, Josh?
I would say just act fast, but take time and think about the decisions you're about to make, because decisiveness gets the deal, but planning. Yeah. You have to plan before the opportunity, right? You have to pre-plan. That's correct. And a lot of people do it the opposite way.
But if you knew the type of deal, even in today's market, the type of deal that you want, that makes sense to you, that you've had your eye on this kind of building for a while, you knew you wanted to own it in your portfolio, and you just worked backwards on a cash flow spreadsheet. This is the number I need to get for an 8 unit. This is the number I need to get for a 10 unit. Or if they'll offer a VTB, this is how. And you have a few structures loosely in your head, and you say, okay, now I'll just keep my eyes out and wait until I find that deal.
Yeah, educate yourself. Understand how the numbers work. I can't tell you how many people look to take down these buildings. I have no idea how the numbers work.
Interesting.
So invest in yourself and invest in understanding how it works, because that's going to allow you to be able to make decisive decisions without, obviously you can have a broker who can run those for you, but
that shouldn't be your first bet.
That shouldn't be your first bet. So
it's like anything, you should have a base knowledge of these things so that you crunch the numbers real quick before you call up a guy like Josh and say, hey, does this work? Well, hey, did you crunch the basic numbers?
Yeah. You got a lot of people who are maybe in some coaching programs or who have mentors and stuff who are, their scapegoat is just go talk to your broker about the financing. Oh, and it's okay, I can teach you how to buy it, I can teach you why it's good, I can teach all these things, but you don't know anything about the financing side of it. So and that's the most important hurdle in purchasing these types of assets, right?
Yeah.
So how do How do you learn those things? That's a good question. I mean, it isn't really out there. We're actually looking to do a few in-person events where we're going to teach investors how to do that
do some
this
of
year.
And that's great. Like, let's talk about that. Maybe there's something we can do together, because I think that that's really valuable. That's valuable for people. Like, just teach them that side of the business so that they're not starting from scratch. Like, I've been big on my listeners and viewers being able to pull my cash flow spreadsheet out and sub in real numbers and figure out if a deal works before they go beyond that. You need to be able to know if a deal will work before you even move to step 2.
For sure.
And then once you get to that point, now you can analyze deals like crazy. And then you can finally know when you found a good one, because you can actually analyze them yourself.
Yeah, and that the level of it, like, that puts you in such a higher level of investor than any other investor who's out there just looking at deals saying, "Oh, I think this maybe works." Don't go off of the realtor, spreadsheet.
Don't
that
forget
gives you
about what the
that.
realtors say, because every selling realtor butters up their properties and makes it sound the best they can, in their perspective anyway.
I can't tell you how many numbers I've seen that has no management, maintenance, or vacancy in them. This is my NOI. This is not your NOI.
In my experience, like, anytime anyone ever sent me income and expenses, I'm like, okay, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. So I'll just take, like, okay, what's your insurance, like your actual insurance bill?
Yeah. What's
your actual property tax and your rent roll, and I'll figure out the rest. And make my own estimates, so that, and unless they had some sort of weird outlier where they could specifically tell you why their expense is so much less, I'll consider that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. So Josh, one thing I was going to say, like, I think it's super cool, coming at it from the entrepreneurial side. It's nice to have people on it who are, running their own businesses, because I think real estate investors are entrepreneurs, and you're also doing it with your mortgage business, which takes guts to go out there and do that. You made a smart move, I think, by aligning yourself with Matt McKeever's group, and I think you sponsored their show for many years, right?
We still do, yeah. We still drop content every other Friday, Finance Fridays.
Okay, yeah.
We try to advise people on different types of financing solutions, mortgage tips, tricks, what's happening in the market, stuff like that.
Very cool. So where do people find you? Obviously, they find you on Finance Friday, but do you have an Insta that you send people to, or a website?
Yeah, so you can follow us on Instagram, the Findlay team. We have a phenomenal media team. Shout out to Peter. He's phenomenal. He keeps us running 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
You can also follow me, JFins, on Instagram, or you can reach out to us. My contact information will all be, I guess, down below.
Yeah, so on the YouTube version, it'll be in the description, and then show notes for all the audio listeners.
Perfect. If anybody's wondering, I work 27 hours a day. So if you need me, you can catch me.
All right. Cool, man. Well, thank you for coming over.
Appreciate it, man. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Please make sure to share this episode far and wide. Help it help more people. I really appreciate you tuning in. I'll see you on the next one. This episode is brought to you by Control and Compound Financial. They are real estate investors assisting other real estate investors to implement the infinite banking strategy. To learn more about how this can help investors like you, visit controlandcompound.com/Andrew Hines. Are you interested in getting started in investing in the United States but not sure where to start? Why not attend the Investing in the U.S. Mastermind hosted by myself and Nick Van Dyke on March 4th, 2023. Nick and I will be covering topics ranging from A to Z, new construction, multifamily development, Airbnb, and much, much more, as well as the basics, including opening a bank account and understanding the proper corporate structure. We'll have several keynote speakers touching on very specific topics. And most importantly, you'll be sitting in a room with people who are highly focused and highly committed to investing in the United States. For more information, visit investingintheus.com and send me a DM on Instagram for a special discount code. I'll look forward to seeing you at the event. Real estate values and interest rates are changing quickly, and huge opportunities are opening up in the marketplace. But to take advantage of those opportunities, you're going to need real estate experts on your team. That's why I've brought my first sponsor on the show, Jacob Campanero with Royal LePage Signature. Jacob is an expert commercial multifamily realtor, and he's also the resident realtor on my new deal analysis show, REI Hot Seat, which is available on YouTube. If you're looking to add a quality piece to your real estate power team, Jacob and his team are there to help. To book a consultation with a member of his team, fill out the form available through the link in the show notes on this episode, and a member of his team will be in touch.